We are now 8 days away from kicking off the 2024 season, and today we're talking linebackers. It's time to knock somebody's stuff loose.
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Wolfpack Nation? It's time to get locked in with Locked On. Thanks for making Locked On Wolfpack your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. As always, terms apply. Happy Wednesday to all. As always, I'm Grayson Boone, joined by former Wolfpack defensive tackle Kenton Gibbs. Kenton, we're talking a lot about the NC State linebackers here. We're going to begin this show with our next installment of the First and 10 series. This is talking about 10 goals that NC State must hit on in order to reach Charlotte for a second time, meaning an ACC championship. Our goal for today is day 8. There's 8 days left till kickoff. Ironically, one of our linebackers this year will be number 8, Devon. We said that the leading 3 linebackers on the 2024 squad must finish with a minimum of between 65 and 75 tackles. Kenton, tell me why we landed somewhere within this number.
Yeah, so last year, Payton Wilson and Jaylen Scott said something it's not really
probably a record.
Those two alone combined for over 200 tackles, I believe. So, obviously you combine in the third leading tackling linebacker behind them, you probably end up somewhere in that 80-ish tackle range. Hey, listen, you don't need to be that in order for this team to be really good. But we came up with that number based upon the fact that you look back at the years where we had the big 3 in terms of Payton, Isaiah Moore, and young Drake Thomas. You had those 3 and you were like, man, these guys, they're absolute ballers. They're studs. What were their numbers like? Now let's pretend, because at that point in time, we had the best linebacker core in the ACC, one of the best in the country, bar none. And so we said, all right, a step below that, right? A step to where you're like, we're one of the better groups in the ACC. What does that potentially look like? And that's how we came up with the 65 to 75 range. Realistically, we're probably looking more on the 65 side of things, but we'll see.
And that's a minimum target. Let me remind you, not projection on what they need to have. That's a baseline minimum, because yes, when you're looking at 2023, no one is going to be able to replicate Payton Wilson's numbers. It's honestly a fact. It's more of an opinion, but it feels a lot like a fact. Payton Wilson had 138 tackles last season by himself. Number 2 on the team was Jaylen Scott. He had 74. So yes, the two of them combined, both as linebackers, tallied for over 222 total tackles. That's a lot of tackles. Caden Fordham was the 3rd linebacker on the team with 53. So then you're looking at 270-ish tackles amongst your top 3 linebackers. Realistically speaking, probably not going to hit that number in 2024, but that's okay. You don't have to. You don't have to try and replace a literal Superman in the middle of your linebacking core. Looking back at 2022, Drake Thomas was the leader on that squad, 101 tackles. Payton Wilson was a little dinged up at times, still had 82 tackles, and Isaiah Moore. So the 3-headed trio, Isaiah Moore also had 82 tackles. So combining those 3, not quite at peak health, but really close, you had 260-ish total tackles there. That's a really good mark to hit. And again, those were 3 elite linebackers at the time. And then last one I'll read to you, 2021, Drake Thomas led the way that season because we had injuries all over the place. Drake Thomas had 100. Vi Jones, shout out Vi, he was the 2nd leading linebacking tackler on the squad. He had 45. We had half a season of Isaiah Moore. He had 43. And then we have Devon, who had to step up in a big way back in 2021. He finished with 39 tackles. So when you're trying to balance out what production might look like in 2024, honestly, I would expect Sean Brown to probably sit between 90 and 100. I think he's going to be a tackle machine as a linebacker. So that would mean the other 2, and we think it'll probably be Caden Fordham and Devon Betty. We don't know that for sure, but pretty good indication. Those two are going to have to sit with a minimum of at least 65, balancing out the entire workload amongst the linebackers. And of course, in a Tony Gibson defense, the secondary is also heavily involved in making some big hits. So there's some balance to distribute out that way as well. But we say all this to say the linebacking core in 2024 is probably the biggest question mark, but also really important to this defense if they want to stay at that elite level.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, the reality is these tackle numbers are not born out of thin air. When you look at what the most successful 3-3-5s have bred, this is generally the area that the linebackers are in. This is about where they are. Of course, you generally have one linebacker who's carrying the show to some extent and boosting those numbers up. But, I mean, your top three, they need to be within this range just about in order for you to have an effective and efficient defense.
2023, our top three linebackers accounted for nearly 280 total tackles. 2022, it was 260. I'm thinking in 2024, they got to sit probably around, I'd say like 240 to 250. I think if you can find yourself to get into that range, you'll be in pretty good shape as far as the overall defense goes.
If those top three could get 240, 250, that they're rolling. They're at that point in time, whichever three you have, they are absolutely rolling. And again, it's like what we talked about with Grayson McCall. I don't need you to be Superman, but if you are, it's nice. The linebackers don't need to be Superman. They need to be where you're supposed to be. Make the plays you're supposed to make. And everything else will let it sort itself out. But be where you're supposed to be, make the plays you're supposed to make. To me, if they get about 200 as a unit, I think we'll be fine. Anything below that 200 number, it gets a little dicey. But 200 is about where I want to see them as a group.
Devon Betty had some comments to the media that we'll touch on here in just a couple minutes, but there's a lot of confidence, it seems, that the defense can stay at that level. But now let's talk likelihood as we have with our other 1st and 10 goals. The likelihood that our top three linebackers will have a minimum of between 65 and 75 tacklers, Kenton. What do you have for us?
You know, I look at this and I say, okay, what do I most likely believe will happen, right? And the first thing, I have no doubt in my mind, Sean Brown's going for 100 ball. Book it, put it in your calendars. He's going to get 100. And so then you say, okay, if he's coming with 100 to make the total, everybody would need the total. If you're doing 3 times 65, you're looking at 195. If you take away 100, that means 95 has to get split between the next two guys. So the question is, most likely Fordham and Betty, can I trust them to get me about 50, like close to 50? Yes. With the amount of snaps that they're going to have, I think that they get it done. I'd say this is right out of coin toss territory. I'd say it's in I feel good territory. Not on the upper side, but it's in I feel good.
Yep, you took the words right out of my mouth. I feel pretty good about this. I think there's more confidence than just a coin flip, but I certainly wouldn't call it a lock because there's a lot of work that has to be done to ensure that all three of them can hit that range. I do feel good about this, though. Sean Brown, like you mentioned, I think he's going to be a machine in the middle of that defense. And then eyes are going to turn on to Caden Fordham and Devon Betty. Can they reach a minimum of 65? I think that the two of them very well can. Fordham last year had 53, mostly because Payton Wilson was just beating everyone to the ball carrier. So perhaps Fordham will have a better chance to tally a couple more tackles this year. And then Devon Betty, we'll get into more of his comments here again in just a little bit, but I'm looking for him to take a pretty sizable leap as a senior leader in this linebacking core as well. So I feel pretty good about this statistic hitting in 2024. Coming up next, we're going to get into a whole lot of nothing or a whole lot of something after a quick word from our sponsors. You need tickets? Gametime has got tickets. Gametime is the fastest and easiest way to secure all the tickets that you need throughout the entire fall. Gametime is also debuting a new feature called Gametime Picks, which makes getting tickets to your favorite live events that much easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. As always, using their last-minute ticket deals, you can save up to 60% off buying tickets to sports, concerts, comedy, theater, you name it, they got it. Toggling their all-in pricing feature on the app will show your total up front so you receive zero surprises at checkout. And as always, you get that panoramic view of your seat in the app before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect upon arrival. Take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets, college football tickets, playoff baseball tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. And again, create an account and use redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College, for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Our second sponsor of the day is FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, but that's because it's America's #1 sports book. And now we have something a little bit different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and if you choose, you can cancel at any time. All you have to do is visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. FanDuel. College football is back, and it's not too late to catch up before the season kicks off. SEC, ACC, Big Ten, and Big 12, you can get it all from Locked On's stable of college experts by subscribing to the Locked On College Football Podcast. Who has a chance to make the playoff? What teams will cause chaos in their new conferences? Everything you need to know all in one place, Locked On College Football Podcast. Be sure to follow and subscribe, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Middle portion of our Wednesday show, now time for a whole lot of nothing or a whole lot of something. 3 topics, we'll tell you exactly where we stand on them. First one here, women's basketball. It has been announced that they're playing in the Jimmy V Classic against Louisville. Whole lot of nothing, whole lot of something.
A whole lot of something. I'm excited that there's an NC State basketball team in the Jimmy V Classic. Finally. I've been waiting for this my whole life, but seriously, how does a conference game end up being in the Jimmy V Classic? How did that work? What was everybody just that scared of Reynolds Coliseum? Was everybody that shook up that they say, hey, I ain't playing in no Jimmy V Classic in Reynolds. I ain't doing it. I get it. I get it. Our women pose multiple problems, and I'll tell you they're going to be fantastic this upcoming year as well. I'm excited for them. I'm excited for this game. I'm excited really for the opportunity to play Louisville on this big, bright stage, where it's, at the end of the day, these young women have been prepared for this. They have been on the biggest of stages. They have been where the lights are the brightest. I am telling you, this is going to be a great game to see.
It's definitely a whole lot of something. I am, too, really happy about this opportunity for Westmore and the women's basketball team. Another marquee matchup that the country gets to watch, what we've been cooking up in Raleigh recently. This team is going to be really, really good this year. Very excited about those prospects. But yeah, to get NC State finally in the Jimmy V Classic, no idea why it has taken this long to get back into it. It's very long overdue, but it's well-deserved. I don't understand why we don't have both teams playing in the Jimmy V Classic every single year, perhaps because it makes too much sense. But nonetheless, it will be so cool to see the women play in the Jimmy V Classic against Louisville. It is in mid-December. Really not sure how you get a conference game to be propped up into this game, but nonetheless, very cool to see. A whole lot of something. Second one here, Grayson McCall. He has the 5th highest Heisman odds for anyone playing in the ACC. Whole lot of nothing, whole lot of something.
Whole lot of something. I'm going to say a whole lot of something from the standpoint of Grayson McCall is getting a lot of respect here. Part of me wanted to say a whole lot of nothing only because there are not many star-studded guys in the ACC. But then when I thought about it, I said, wait a minute. How many big names are there in college football this year, period? Like, there's not the appeal of a guy that you love to hate like a Caleb Williams in college football this year. Who's that guy for college football this year? Maybe Shedeur Sanders, but his team went 4-8, and Williams was coming off of a Heisman. Shedeur's coming off of throwing up his wrist in the middle of a game. Like, it's not – those two are not quite equivalent. Who's the golden child that everybody loves and adores in the same way that you look at Drake May from last year? You know, you struggle to come up with these guys. Or J.J. McCarthy is another one that, you know, for whatever reason – even when he played terribly, everybody's like, oh, he's great. He's amazing. They're still winning. So I say all that to say there aren't many big names in college football, which makes me want to say a whole lot of nothing, but a whole lot of something because we're getting national respect in Raleigh.
I'm actually going to go with both on here. I think it's a whole lot of something from a betting standpoint because there's a ton of value. This is plus 10,000 for a quarterback that we've talked about on here Would it be so crazy to see him in New York at the end of the season? I don't think it would be the craziest thing I've ever seen. If everything
No.
goes right, and it probably would take everything going right, he could certainly end up as a Heisman finalist. The value, if you're into this type of thing, plus 10,000, like Kenton actually said this before he jumped on here, I've heard of worse ways to burn $100. I mean, hey, if that hits, you're having a pretty good day. You're having a pretty good day. I'll leave you with that. However, I'm also going to say a whole lot of nothing because this is just extra noise. No one believes that Grayson McCall can win the Heisman. I hope he hears that. No one believes he can do it. That's where you go out and prove him wrong. Are the odds stacked against you? Sure. This is where all that doubt can turn into fuel. So on that front, it's also a whole lot of nothing. Last one here. Hollywood Smothers, the Oklahoma transfer running back home playing in North Carolina. He's very happy to be doing so. He had a quote with the Wolfpacker. It says, "When you're out there with guys you love, who you grew relationships with, it makes the game more fun. You're willing to try harder for those guys." This is in context to returning home and playing with his high school teammate in KC Concepcion. Whole lot of nothing, whole lot of something.
Whole lot of something. It's exciting to have these guys back, but maybe for future reference, we keep some of these ballers in state just from the beginning. We don't even send them off elsewhere for a year. We keep them in state, keep them being their best from the jump, saying, hey, listen, you don't got to be like us. Don't make the same mistake we made. You know what I mean? I had to go up there to figure out, not only is it cold, it's Ohio. Ew. What a disgusting place. I had to go out there to figure out there's nothing in Oklahoma. There's nothing there. Now that Lincoln Riley's gone, there's really nothing there. Brent Venables was supposed to be the Bud Foster of the 2010s and 2020s. Got too big for his britches, became a head coach. Clearly he's in over his head. So maybe next time, some of these guys, you don't need to go elsewhere to see like, hey, this is where you need to be at.
It's a whole lot of something. And if I'm Dave Dorn and the rest of the recruiting staff, I'm using this as a literal billboard to anyone that chose to go elsewhere these last couple of years. You're talking Faison Brandon, Snook Peterkin, any other guys that you felt like you had a real shot at and they chose to go elsewhere. Prop up these words from Hollywood Smothers. You can stay here in North Carolina, play with your friends, and still make a name for yourself in P4 football. Everything that you want can be accomplished right here. It always seems to go back to those comments made by Traquavion Smith a couple of years ago in the locker room, where he said the very same thing. You don't have to go to a Duke. You don't have to go to a Kansas. You can accomplish all of your dreams, all of your goals right here at NC State. This is the football version of that. And so if I'm Dave Doran, I would want this plastered everywhere. Use this as a recruiting tool these next couple of years, because at the end of the year, even if they don't win the ACC championship, I would guarantee you this team is going to have way more fun than anyone else in the ACC. Staying at home and playing with all your friends, it is so unbelievably fun. On a really good football team, that makes it that much better. So for me, whole lot of something. I would plaster this everywhere. Coming up next to round out our Wednesday show, linebacker Devon Betty had a couple comments about the prospects of this year's defense. We're going to show you this after a quick word from our sponsors. Our third Wednesday sponsor is Ibotta. Are you taking that dream vacation at the end of this summer but still dreading the cost? With Ibotta, you can get cash back on all of your purchases. You can spend more time making memories and less time dreaming about them. Ibotta is a free app that lets you earn cash back every single time you shop. You can earn on hundreds of items from groceries to beauty supplies and even toys. You can make sure that you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average Ibotta user actually earns back $256 per year. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip, that flight you've been eyeing, or maybe even a fancy dinner with someone special. It's time that you join the over 50 million users who use Ibotta to earn cash back every single time they shop. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta and using the code LOCKEDONCollege when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app and start earning cash back using code LOCKEDONCollege. That's Ibotta, IBOTTA, on the Google Play or App Store using code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College on Ibotta. Last couple of minutes of our Wednesday show, finishing talking about the linebacker, and Devon Betty specifically. He had some comments to the media earlier this week where he was talking about the prospects of the 2024 defense and what they expect to be matching of the 2023 defense. We have a quick clip provided by Pack Pride. Let's bring this up and give it a listen.
As far as the linebacker core.
Oh, we're rolling. As y'all know, we got Sean Brown back on the box. We got Payton Wilson back in the middle. It's probably, look, we're rolling this year. There's no drop off. I know everyone say, "Oh, Payton Wilson left. It's gonna be a huge drop off." I promise you, Sean Brown can get the job done, and I can't wait till y'all see it this year.
You got that. That's been a rallying cry this offseason.
Say it one more time.
Has that been a rallying cry this offseason? No
Yeah.
drop off.
Yeah, that's been the thing. No drop off, no drop off. We hearing it everywhere, social media. But like I tell everybody, we don't get into social media. We kind of just prove it on field. So y'all see, it won't be no drop off this year.
As you heard there from Devon Betty, no drop off on the defensive end. We've talked about the possibility of this defense believing that they have to be better than they were last year, because that's the standard that Tony Gibson upholds year in and year out. He puts up the numbers from the season prior and then expects that the new squad can match or outdo those numbers. This is echoed here in Devon Betty truly believing that this linebacking core and this defense will experience no drop-off despite losing Payton Wilson. Kenton, what do you make of this?
I'll tell you what, I love the confidence. You and I talked about that. You have to have that extreme confidence, that extreme belief in yourself that even borderlines on delusion sometimes. And this is not to say, oh, you're delusional to believe there won't be a drop-off, because I'm going to tell you, Jaylen Scott, the more, and Grace and I have talked about this off air, the more film that I watched on the defense last year, the more I'm like, Jaylen Scott, why'd you have to go? Why? Yeah. He was special at the Sam in the things that he was asked to do. And so it's not just about Payton. If you can replace Payton and Jaylen in a way that not replacing them one for one, but that the level of everybody else raises to a level where it's like, we're not seeing much of a drop-off, and losing those guys, I'm here for it. I love the confidence. I love the bravado to say, hey, there's not going to be a drop-off. We are who we are, and we'll do our talking with our pads. We'll show you. I absolutely love it.
Especially when you look at the entire defense, and you start with the defensive line, a couple different pieces. You lose CJ Clark, you lose Savion Jackson. You're going to get more of Brandon Cleveland and probably more of Red Hibbler and Trevally Price. But you still feel really good about the defensive line being able to pick up from where they left off, with Devon Van leading the way as always. So the defensive line, although maybe a little bit thin when you're looking at depth, there's a lot of talent to be excited about. So roughly the defensive line, you would expect very similar production there. The secondary now might be even stronger than they were last year. You bring in pieces like Jahad Carter, DK Kaufman from Auburn. You get year 2 of Brandon Cisse, a year under his belt. He's going to be a really special player. The kingpin back there in the secondary is Aiden White. Nobody dares to throw it to his side of the field. The secondary might be even better than they were last year in 2023. So that leaves the linebacking core. And again, I'll say this, for the linebacking core to be the one saying that there's going to be no drop-off, that's the group that you want to be hearing it from. And Devon Betty, I'll say it on here again, in times past, we've been critical of Devon Betty. We felt that he kind of fell off a little bit at times last year when there was, several plays, several series, several games where we needed another linebacker to supplement Payton Wilson. So for Devon Betty to be the one saying this in 2024, that gets you excited. You want this group in particular to be pissed off for greatness, as Ray Lewis used to say. You want this particular group to be more fired up than any other group on the defense, maybe even the team, because they feel like they have so much to prove of themselves in 2024. The confidence in Sean Brown that you also heard there from Devon Betty saying that, just wait till you see what he can do. He's going to go out there and get it done. That's, I wouldn't say oddly enough, because a lot of people feel this way, but that seems to be the sentiment around Sean Brown. Yes. They think that they're going to plug him in and he's just going to get to work. And so we certainly hope that is the case. For Caden Fordham, Devon Betty, and whoever else cracks that linebacker rotation, they have extremely big plates to clear off, because matching that production that we got in 2023, it's a really high mark to hit.
There is a sentiment growing around Raleigh that, hey, they're going to produce excellent linebackers. And so, it leaves you with, like you said, a big plate to clean, big shoes to fill year after year after year.
That'll do it for us here on Wednesday. As always, thank you all so much for joining us. Be sure to hit that like button. Drop your comments down in the comment box. Tell us what you think about the numbers we set for the top 3 linebacking trio. Can they hit a minimum of 65 to 75 tackles? Let us know if you do think so in the comments. Let us know what you think about Grayson McCall's Heisman odds, the women's basketball team getting into the Jimmy V Classic, and Devon Betty believing that there will be no defensive drop-off in 2024. Anything else you have on your mind, drop that down in the comment box as well. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, and we will see you all tomorrow on Thursday. And until then, go Pack.
Go Pack.